You stand at the produce section and you choose the dark leafy greens. Not because someone made you, because you decided, a long time ago, after a conversation with a doctor, after reading something, after watching a neighbor's health decline, that you were going to do this right. You pick up the kale, you place it in the cart. Maybe the spinach, too. The broccoli is on sale, and you add that without thinking. You wheel past the processed foods, and you feel, quietly, like a person who is making the right call, every single time. You have been doing this for months, some of you for years. Here is what most people have never been told. Choosing vegetables is not reckless. It is not ignorant. It is not the behavior of someone who is not paying attention. Adding more dark greens to your diet is, by every measure of conventional nutritional guidance, a responsible, thoughtful, medically endorsed decision. Your cardiologist likely recommended it. Your GP likely recommended it. Every health segment you have ever seen on morning television has confirmed it. There is nothing wrong with the instinct. The instinct is correct. Look, I want to be honest with you about something. I have this same conversation every single week. A patient comes in, they are doing everything right, they are proud of it, and there is this one piece of the picture that nobody stopped to give them. That is not their failure. That is a gap in the information they were handed. What you cannot see, what your body cannot announce, is the specific, silent way that several of those vegetables interact with the medication sitting in your pill organizer right now. I want to tell you about a patient I will call Dorothy. Dorothy was 68 years old, retired registered nurse, a woman who had spent her entire career educating patients about their medications, about their diets, about the exact kind of interactions we are going to talk about today. She was disciplined, methodical, not a single missed dose in over 2 years on her blood thinner. Her cardiologist had told her she was one of his most compliant patients. Dorothy had also, in the months before I met her, made a sincere effort to improve her diet. More vegetables, less processed food. She was proud of it. Her family was proud of her. And then her INR came back. We will come back to Dorothy, because what her lab result revealed, and what she told me afterward, is something every person watching this video right now deserves to hear before tonight. Here is what the standard appointment can deliver. A standard cardiology or GP visit allows 8 to 12 minutes of active clinical conversation. In that window, your doctor confirms your dose, reviews your blood pressure, checks for major contraindications, and hands you the prescription. What that window cannot reliably deliver is a detailed, personalized conversation about which specific vegetables, by name, are competing with your blood thinner at the level of your bloodstream every single day. That is not a criticism of your cardiologist. Your cardiologist is working within a system that was never designed to have that conversation at scale. The prescription was the beginning. This video is the rest of it. Now, before we get into the 6 vegetables, I want to address the thing many of you have already thought of. My pharmacist told me to keep my diet consistent. That handles it. And I want to be fair here, because that guidance is not wrong. Consistency is genuinely part of the management protocol for warfarin in particular. But here is the limitation that conversation almost never reaches. Consistency does not neutralize the interaction. It manages it. What consistency means in practice is, your cardiologist has calibrated your dose around the amount of vitamin K you are currently consuming. If you eat the same amount every week, the dose can be adjusted to compensate. What it does not mean that these vegetables have no effect on your medication. They do, every single time. The dose calculation is built around that effect. And the problem, the real problem, is that most people are not eating consistently. They are eating seasonally, randomly, enthusiastically in January and less so in March, more at a family dinner and less on a Tuesday alone. I'm going to say something that might surprise you. The patients I see most often with dangerous INR swings are not the ones who ignored the advice. They are the ones who took it seriously and then got healthier. They started eating more greens, more often, with real commitment. And their dose became miscalibrated because the baseline the doctor built the prescription around no longer existed. Consistency is a management tool. Knowledge is the foundation. My name is Dr. Tiera Khan, and I work specifically with adults over 60 who are managing complex medication regimens, including anticoagulants like Warfarin and Eliquis. Before we go further, I need to be clear. This video is for educational purposes only. Nothing here replaces the guidance of your prescribing cardiologist or your pharmacist who knows your full medication history. Do not change your diet or your dose based on this video alone. Bring what you learn here to your next appointment. What I am going to give you today are 6 specific vegetables by name and the precise reason each one affects how your blood thinner performs inside your body. There are 6 of them. Each one has a different mechanism, a different risk profile, and a different management approach. Stay with me for all 6, because the one that is most likely affecting you is probably not the one you expect. Kale is the first one. If you are eating kale regularly, in salads, in smoothies, sautéed with garlic, and you are on warfarin specifically, your cardiologist needs to know exactly how much and how often. Not approximately, exactly. Here is why. Kale contains one of the highest concentrations of vitamin K, one of any commonly consumed vegetable. Vitamin K1, the clotting vitamin, which is why it works directly against what warfarin is trying to do. Warfarin works by blocking your body's ability to use vitamin K to form clots. Think of it like a security guard standing at the door of a building. Warfarin's job is to keep vitamin K from getting inside and activating the clotting proteins. When you eat a cup of kale, you are flooding the building with vitamin K, overwhelming the guard, unlocking the door, and allowing your blood to clot faster than your prescribed dose was designed to allow. That is the interaction, not metaphorical. That is the biochemistry. Tonight, if you are on warfarin, do not eliminate kale. Eliminating it abruptly can push your INR dangerously high in the other direction. Instead, pick an amount, a cup twice a week, and keep it identical every single week until your next INR check. Stay with me, because vegetable 3 is the one most people on these medications eat without ever being told to reconsider: spinach. Spinach is in more meals than most people realize. Salads, egg dishes, frozen dinners, pasta, soups. It is often chosen specifically because it is nutrient-dense and heart-healthy, which it is. Without the medication interaction, it is an excellent food. With warfarin in your system, spinach carries a vitamin K1 load that is nearly as significant as kale, and the form it takes, particularly when cooked and wilted down, concentrates that load into a smaller volume than you might expect. Think of it this way. A bag of raw spinach wilts down to roughly 1/4 its size when cooked. The vitamin K that was spread across that full bag is now concentrated in a much smaller serving. A portion that looks modest has the vitamin K content of something 4 times larger. Tonight, if you eat spinach, choose one form, raw or cooked, and one consistent serving size, and keep it there. The variable that most destabilizes INR is not the vegetable itself. It is the inconsistency in how much of it reaches your bloodstream week to week. Broccoli. This is the one I mentioned. Broccoli is almost universally recommended for adults over 60. High in fiber, antioxidant-rich, anti-inflammatory. Your doctor has almost certainly suggested you eat more of it. And most patients on anticoagulants are eating more of it because they are trying to do the right thing, and nobody flagged it. Broccoli contains a meaningful quantity of vitamin K1, and unlike kale or spinach, which many patients already know to watch, broccoli reads as a neutral vegetable, a safe choice, the vegetable version of doing your homework. I see this every single week. The patient who has been so careful, who has cut back on the kale, swapped out the spinach, and is now eating broccoli at dinner every single night because they thought it was the safe one. And their INR has been creeping out of range for 3 months, and nobody has connected the dots. Think of your INR target like the temperature in a carefully managed room. Your warfarin dose is the thermostat. Every consistent vitamin K source in your diet is a window, a little heat loss that the thermostat accounts for. Broccoli, eaten daily, is a window that is open. Your cardiologist set the thermostat assuming a certain number of windows. If you added a new one without telling anyone, the room got warmer than anyone planned for. Tonight, tell your cardiologist or anticoagulation clinic exactly how often you are eating broccoli each week. Not as an estimate, the number. Vegetables 4 and 5 are the ones that affect both warfarin and Eliquis, and the mechanism is different. Stay with me. Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts have a seasonality to them that makes them particularly dangerous from a dosing standpoint. They tend to appear at holiday dinners, at family gatherings, in roasted form during fall and winter, and then disappear from most people's weekly meals for months at a time. That pattern, large amounts during certain periods, none during others, is exactly the kind of dietary variability that sends INR readings into dangerous territory. Brussels sprouts contain very high concentrations of vitamin K1 per serving, and they are typically eaten in larger quantities than people realize when they are served as a side dish at a shared meal. Think of your blood thinner dosing like a carefully tuned instrument. Your cardiologist spent months getting your INR into its target range. That calibration assumes a baseline. A plate of Brussels sprouts at Thanksgiving, when you have eaten none in 6 months, introduces a sudden shift that your current dose was never calibrated to absorb. Tonight, if you eat Brussels sprouts during gatherings or seasonal meals, log it. Tell your anticoagulation clinic in advance. Many clinics now accept calls before holiday meals to advise on monitoring. That one conversation could prevent an emergency visit. Swiss chard. This is the one that catches people who consider themselves very well informed. Swiss chard has developed a strong health food identity. It is found at farmers markets, in clean eating circles, in Mediterranean diet guides. It is less common than spinach or broccoli, which means it is less likely to have come up in a pharmacist conversation. It is also one of the most concentrated sources of vitamin K1 of any vegetable commonly consumed in the United States. Higher, in a single cooked serving, than broccoli, and significantly higher than most people assume. The mechanism here is the same as the others for warfarin, but I want to address Eliquis specifically. Eliquis, apixaban, does not work through the vitamin K pathway the way warfarin does. Eliquis is a direct oral anticoagulant. It blocks clotting at a different point in the cascade. So here is what is true. A single meal of Swiss chard will not directly reduce Eliquis's effectiveness the way it would with warfarin. Here is what is also true, and what most people are never told. Very high, consistent vitamin K intake has been associated in published research, including a study in the journal Thrombosis Research, with alterations in the broader coagulation environment that can interact with the effectiveness of direct oral anticoagulants under certain clinical conditions, particularly in patients with impaired kidney function, which is common in adults over 65. Think of Eliquis as a filter placed in a specific part of a water system. The filter does its job well under normal flow. Swiss chard eaten daily in large quantities can, in susceptible individuals, alter what the filter has to work against. If you are on Eliquis, Swiss chard is not a food to watch with the same urgency as warfarin users, but it is a food worth disclosing to your cardiologist, particularly if you have any kidney disease history. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. For patients on Eliquis who also have any degree of kidney disease, this conversation is genuinely important. I would rather have you bring it up at an appointment and have your cardiologist tell you it's not a concern in your case than never bring it up at all. Tonight, if you eat Swiss chard regularly and you are on any anticoagulant, Warfarin or Eliquis, mention it at your next appointment. One sentence. I eat Swiss chard regularly. Is that relevant to my medication? Before I give you vegetable 6, type yes in the comments right now if you eat any of the 5 vegetables we have already covered. I read every single response personally. And if you are getting information in this video that nobody handed you at a prescription window, subscribe right now. This is what I do every single week. Asparagus. Asparagus is the final one, and in some ways the most important, because it is the one that most directly disrupts both the dosing schedule and the lab interpretation for patients on warfarin, and it tends to arrive in large amounts at exactly the wrong moments. Asparagus has a moderate vitamin K1 content per spear, lower than kale or spinach in raw form, but it is almost always eaten in large portions. 4 to 6 spears is a modest serving. 8 to 12 is common at a restaurant or a family meal. And at those quantities, the cumulative vitamin K1 load becomes clinically significant. There is also a secondary mechanism with asparagus that is worth knowing. Asparagus is a natural diuretic. It promotes urinary output, which means that in patients who are even mildly dehydrated, asparagus can temporarily concentrate certain compounds in the blood, including, in some clinical presentations, the very compounds involved in clotting assessment. Think of your blood's clotting activity like the density of traffic on a road. Warfarin is designed to manage a certain traffic volume. A large serving of asparagus simultaneously adds more vehicles and narrows the lane slightly. The result is a reading, your INR, that may not accurately reflect what your dose is actually doing under normal conditions. Tonight, if asparagus is a regular part of your diet, keep the portion consistent and log it. And if your INR has been behaving unpredictably, readings that seem to vary without a change in your medication, bring your vegetable intake history to your next appointment. Not as a complete food diary, specifically, these 6. Before you act on anything you have just heard, I need you to hold 4 rules, because the mistake I see most often is not ignoring this information. It is responding to it incorrectly. And an incorrect response to a blood thinner interaction can be just as dangerous as no response at all. Rule 1. Never eliminate a vegetable suddenly when you are on warfarin. Sudden elimination of a vitamin K source that your current dose was calibrated against will push your INR upward in the direction of too thin, which carries its own serious bleeding risk. The goal is consistency, then calibration, then adjustment under clinical guidance. Drop nothing from your diet before calling your anticoagulation clinic first. Rule 2. Eliquis and warfarin are not the same conversation. Warfarin is highly sensitive to dietary vitamin K. Eliquis is not in the same direct mechanism. If you are on Eliquis, your urgency level around these vegetables is different. Your conversation with your cardiologist is still warranted, but your risk exposure from a single meal is lower. Do not apply warfarin dietary rules to Eliquis without confirmation from your prescriber. Rule 3. The INR test only tells you what was true on the day of the draw. It does not predict what your INR will be at the holiday dinner next Thursday. It does not account for the 3 days of vegetable smoothies you had last week. If you have had a dietary shift, in any direction, in the weeks before your INR test, tell the clinic before you draw, not after. The number means more when your provider knows the context. Rule 4. Your pharmacist can review this in a single conversation. Your prescribing cardiologist has 8 minutes. Your pharmacist has no such constraint. A pharmacist can review your complete medication and supplement list against your dietary habits and flag specific interactions for free today at the pharmacy where you fill your prescription. Use that resource before your next INR check. I want to come back to Dorothy. And I want to tell you this part the way it actually happened, because it matters. Dorothy, the retired registered nurse, came to me after her INR came back dangerously low. Her blood was clotting faster than her dose was designed to allow. She was at elevated risk. And she could not understand why, because she had not changed her medication, had not missed a dose, had not added anything new. What had changed was the volume and frequency of the leafy greens she was eating. She had added kale smoothies 4 mornings a week. She had increased her spinach intake significantly. She was eating broccoli most evenings, all in a sincere, committed effort to protect her heart. The changes that were meant to protect her were working against her prescription. She adjusted. She worked with her anticoagulation clinic to stabilize her intake and recalibrate her dose over 6 weeks. Her INR came back into range. Dorothy told me, "I spent 30 years telling patients to talk to their doctors about their medications. I never once thought to tell them to talk about their salad." That is what I want for you. Not a life where you are afraid of vegetables. A life where you understand exactly which ones to discuss with the person who manages your dose, and how to have that conversation, so that your commitment to your health and your medication are working together, not against each other. What I want for you is a dinner table where nothing is frightening, where you can eat with intention and with confidence, where your INR result is stable, not because you have been afraid of food, but because you have the specific knowledge to make consistent choices that your medication and your body can work with, where the next lab result is one that your cardiologist looks at and nods, not one that requires an urgent callback. That is a possible outcome for every person watching this video right now. I want to hear from you. Which of these 6 vegetables surprised you the most? Tell me in the comments. Kale, spinach, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, Swiss chard, or asparagus? Which one were you eating regularly without knowing it needed to be part of a conversation? Tell me in the comments. I read every single response personally. Share this with anyone in your life who is on a blood thinner and eating vegetables because they were told to eat healthier. You may be giving them the conversation that prevents an emergency call at 2 in the morning. They deserve to know, and you are the person close enough to make sure they do. In the next video I am publishing, I am covering a combination that affects more than 4 million adults over 60 who have no idea it is happening inside them every single day. A medication timing error that most people make in the first 10 minutes after waking up. You will want to see that before tomorrow morning. This is Dr. Tiera Khan. Take these 6 vegetables to your next anticoagulation appointment and have the conversation. I'll see you in the next one.